everyone, it's Natalia, and I love making nails for my friends. And today I wanted to make some Halloween nails to go with this one hand in an Edgar Allan Poe theme. So let's get going. So I got this new mold, and I'm sort of formatting the whole nails around it. It had a bunch of roses and like this heart, so it's sort of doing like a telltale heart. So I've grabbed some quotes, which is "Hark louder, that agony." I also have this other mold that I use that has like a filigree design that I wanted to do in sort of a red and black. I'm going to be using the Rosy Hip collection, this Mayo collection, a couple yogurt nail, and I think a Jello. And that's basically what we're going to get up to. Put a lot of roses. I'm hoping it'll turn out well. It's going to be a glitter base. This may not turn out great. We're going to find out. Okay. Wish me luck. I really liked the Mayo Hongyan collection, and I really wanted to use it for this to hopefully make some spooky nails. So let's go. First up is going to be basic nail prep. I'm using a medium stiletto tip for these. So first I've got to file off the little nubs at the end and sort of, I like rounding them slightly because I don't like them to be super sharp. Let's just zip through that. So after filing these are soft gel tips, so I just need to give them a good buff after the tips are nice and filed. And then so that when you're buffing, I just use like this little cheapo buffing block. You just want to make sure there's absolutely no shine left on the nails. And you want to do that to every single nail, and that's just so that it will adhere. The gel will adhere, and you don't need a base coat generally with these, so that's pretty exciting. And of course, I lose nails off my stands all the time. I've tried so many different things. I'm just using little double-sided sticky tab tapes right now, but one day I'll find the perfect product for me. So once you've got these all nice and buffed up, you just want to wipe them down with alcohol before we can get started painting the nails. So I'm using a 99% alcohol. It is in a bottle that says 70%, but I've used all that and replaced it with 99%. So, but 70% is also fine. It's just 99% is what they sell at the dollar store. Okay, before we get to painting, make sure to put on some gloves. I use some nitrile gloves. You do not want to get uncured gel on your hands. It can cause dermatitis or allergies, and we want to avoid all that. So please wear gloves. Once we get those on, we'll be ready to go. The struggle is real. Okay. So for our base coats, on 3 of the nails, we're going to be using the Mayo number 2 from the Mahon collection. We're going to be doing that on the ring finger, the index finger, and the thumb. This is like a really nice syrup. All the gels in this collection are these beautiful, like, rich colored syrups, but they are a little sheer. So they do have a layerable situation, but they're not like a full opaque syrup, but they're not a jelly. It's hard to explain, but they're a really nice texture. I really love the Mayo Korea gels, and this collection got me. It has like this red, has a darker red, a slightly lighter like orangey red, and then like a autumnal brown and a blue. They're really quite nice, and the texture is wonderful. So for the pinky and the middle finger, I'm going in with this sort of super dark gray. It looks black on camera, but it's not quite black. It's like a super, super dark navy gray. And the yogurt gels are also extremely wonderful. The texture is smooth. They're very opaque, but I will be putting 2 coats of these because I always do. So once you have these covered, stick them in for a full cure before doing the second coat. And then, of course, pick the cat hair out of them, as is my constant struggle. All right, send those in for full cure. All right, we're doing a second coat to make sure that there's like a nice smooth coverage. These do self-level, but sometimes because they're so sheer, like any unevenness can be easily seen, which is why I think I always do 2 coats of these syrups because of that. But they're so gorgeous. Like, look at them. Beautiful. And while the yogurt gel doesn't necessarily need a second coat, I always like to put 2 coats just to make sure that there's absolutely full coverage, because you will always find the random little spot that is just slightly sheer after you're done, and it's always so frustrating. Pick another cat hair off of that. My cat, while I was making these nails, my cat was literally on her cat tree sitting behind me, like yelling at me about how I wasn't paying attention to her. So the cat hair is inevitable. Once you've got your second coats on, stick it in for another cure. So I really love the MH04 from this collection, this glitter. It's like gold glitter, but it also has like these like red and black flakes in it. It's really interesting. So I'm putting it on pretty much on all the nails, but on the thumb and the middle finger, I'm going to be sort of like feathering it from the cuticle on the thumb, and then on the, like from the tip up on the middle finger. So it's not going to be covering the full nail. I do find out later that this really made absolutely no visual difference, but I was, being fancy. I'm just using a little check brush here to just sort of feather it down. To be honest, like these nails right now, if you wore them, they would look gorgeous and would have no problem. But I got to be extra with them as per usual. So stick them in for a full cure, and then we're going to be getting to decorating them. So on the ring finger and the index finger, I'm putting on some Art Matte, the Genby Mayo Yummy top coat. Now, I do this for nails that I want to do like small intricate designs are, because my technique, if we're going to call it that, is that I like to draw it out in pencil crayon first, so that I have something to just basically paint over. And the Yummy matte top is so good for that, because it's really made for doing like pencil crayons and pen and stuff on top of. It is a wipe top, so after you put this in for a full minute cure, you want to wipe it off with alcohol, because it is not non-wipe. So you do alcohol, and then it turns matte. It won't look matte when you take it out. And then I go in with I have just like a box of Crayola pencil crayons, because I used to babysit my neighbor, so I have all these kid art supplies that I would get. And so I'm going to be writing. Initially, I wanted to do both Hark Louder, but then I realized there really was not enough room for me with my current level of skill to do that. So I'm writing just the word Hark and then an exclamation point on the ring finger. And these are quotes from Telltale Heart right at the end. And then on this one, we're going to be putting That Agony. Because it's basically what he yells when the man is going insane after killing his landlord, essentially. Or this agony, sorry. Not that agony, but this agony. So I really find that putting down like an art mat and then writing it down with like a pencil crown with a contrasting color before you go into paint letters is super helpful, because it's sort of like you just then get to paint by numbers. You can do the same thing for character art. Like you can make like put down a matte art and then the art top, and then sketch out your character art to do sort of like a paint by numbers. And the nice thing about it is, if you mess up like I just did here, you can take an alcohol and a Q-tip and just wipe off the pencil crown, and it comes off immediately. It's really quite useful. So after I've got all that written down, I'm just taking the same yogurt number 79, like the navy black, to write it. Now, in retrospect, now that I've finished these nails, I feel like I should have done a lighter background or lighter letters. Like I feel like the letters don't really stand out that much, and you can really only see them if you're right up on them. You know what I mean? I think I did a pretty good job at doing them. Like, they look nice. I wanted them to sort of have a written by someone going insane, so they're sort of like, you know, spiky looking. And I'm curing between each letter so that I don't mess it up while doing the next letter. But just like, you just need to do a 5-second cure just so it's like there, and you put it in for a full cure after. But I feel like they don't really stand out super well. Maybe if I hadn't done the glitter, I don't know. This nail set, they're visually interesting, but I'm not sure I love it now that I've like looking back, you know what I mean? But I can't just only put up wins, you know. I like to share the things I actually make. But I think I didn't, if I'm just looking at the lettering independent from whether it fits on the entire set, I think I did a pretty good job at the lettering, because I have a lot of trouble. I even have bad handwriting in like real life, so painting it tiny on a nail is a real challenge for me. But I will say the method of writing it out first with the pencil crown, for if you are struggling with lettering, much easier. It won't work on all matte top coats. You do need to get one that's like specifically made for like doing pencil crown and stuff. So there's this one, I think the May Mode one from Sweetie Nail Supply, you can also do this with. But I really like the Yummy matte art top. I think it works really well. And I think I would like to do more like pencil crown nails where I actually do the nail art in pencil crowns, but we'll see. We'll see what I get up to in the future. I really like lettering on nails. And I tend to also go for the straight lines first and then go back in for the curves, because straight lines are much easier to paint with gel than curves and circles are. So you'll see I'm doing the O in agony last on this. I made the line of the Y really long towards the end of the nail, as though it's being like, you know, dramatically dragged off the page. I was trying some stuff. So after you're finished the lettering, put it in for a full cure again. And then we're going to be started on some 3D nail elements after this. So first off, I'm going to be putting some thorn, like there's like this nail mold I got, which is linked below. I have linked it. It has some like little cross thorns. There's lots of roses. So I'm using the Rosy Hip magnetic gel, the green one, RMO5, and I'm just putting it in. I have like, I don't know if this is the right technique to make these tiny little elements on gels, but it does work. And I think, if it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid, right? So I basically just slop it on, like you see me doing here. You just slop it on. I'm calling this sort of like the stamping plate method. I then take a silicone tool, a flat-edged one, and I just sort of swipe it over so that I'm getting all the stuff off the edges, but also pushing it down into the 3D part of the mold. If it's a really thin mold, sometimes this will also pull it out, but you just go back and add it back in. And it does work pretty well. And I don't have any, if it works, you've done it, right? Isn't that all that matters at the end of the day? So we're making these little thorn elements here. And once you've got it sort of you're pretty happy, there's not too much overspill around them. And there's a little, you can usually pull it off with some tweezers after it's cured. I'm going to take a magnet, because this is magnetic gel, it's cat eye gel. Clean up any little extra globs. Sometimes there's more globs, but it doesn't need to be perfect because mostly the little thin stuff left over will just pull right off. I'm going to take a little magnet and I'm going to magnetize it. Will this do much? Very little, but I was sort of experimenting with this set. And then I'm going to just quickly flash cure it to freeze that magnetization in place for what it's worth. So you can stick it from the bottom. And then just, after this, stick it in the lamp to cure for full. So I'm going to wipe off the nails, just because we want them to not really have a tacky layer. Also, by wiping them off, this will remove any of the remaining pencil crayon if it's not fully covered by your gel. So that's useful. So we're just going to wipe that off, because this will make it easier to stick these thorn and other 3D elements on. So take some tweezers and you can gently remove these. If there's any hangers off, sort of hold it and then gently pick off any sort of scraggly gel bits that might be on there. If they're more, stubborn, you can use cuticle scissors. Here you see me scraping off some extras that are just stuck on the mold before pulling it out. And a lot of the times, it's the leftover gel bits are so thin that if it's on a colored base, they will just sort of disappear onto the colored base when you stick them into the rhinestone glue. So it's not the biggest problem for the most part if there's tiny little, mostly transparent extra pieces of gel. It all depends on how much of a perfectionist you really want to be at any moment. So I made these 4 little thorns, and we are going to stick these. This last one did cause me a bit of problem, but it mostly came off. You see, it's really easy to just pick it off with some tweezers. So we're now going to use some tape, because this is the easiest way to clean a 3D mold. Is you grab some tape, and I had some packing tape, and you just roll it around your finger and stick it in, and the tape will just pull off any straggly gel bits right out of the mold. I keep mine in Tupperware containers to prevent dust getting on them. Do recommend that if they don't come with their own little boxes. So I'm going to be using the Crazy Top Thick, which I've been using as rhinestone glue since I am out. I will get some eventually. And you just dip it in. And then you stick it on the nail where you want. Now, this is my little trick coming up, where if things don't lie down perfectly flat, there is a very easy way to get them on. And that is using a jelly stamper, a clear jelly stamper. So you get it where you want and you very carefully press it into place. They can slide around, so be careful with this. And then you take your flash cure lamp and you flash cure through the jelly stamper. Now the jelly stamper is holding it down into place. You only need to cure for about 5 seconds just to keep it in place. And then just do a quick one. And then if there's any overhang, you can just file or cut that away, depending on how thin it is. So I'm going to be filing away the little bit of overhang that has happened with the gel. And it is on there good as can be. And this is so useful. This is useful for if you're like having trouble with decals that don't want to stick, or stickers. Like, you can smush it down with your stamper and do a quick cure, and then it'll hold it down for you. It literally has saved my life. Nail wise. I'm being a little, dramatic. But it does sometimes slide around, so you can just pick it up and move it and stick it back down. And then you hold it in place, flash cure real quick, and it is stuck down flush to the nail. It is absolutely such a good method. Whoop. As you can see, I struggle a lot with keeping nails on tips today. Then you just dip. Get it into place. Smush it down. And cure. I find that there are some that are like taller ones. I find these little short round ones work the best for this because you can see exactly what you're doing a lot easier. If it's overhang, using some nippers, just nip it off. And there we go. Once you've got them all down and sort of flash cured in place, and you've, filed away any overhang, stick them in for a full cure. The next little element I wanted to do was on this other mold, the sort of wing mold. It had these really nice, filigree things that I could have painted. But I wanted to really use molds today. So I'm using the red from the Rosy Hip Gemstone collection, the RMO3, I believe. It's a beautiful, ruby red. And we're doing the exact same thing with sort of slopping it in and then using a silicone tool to scoop out excess. And this one, I just put it right back in. But this one was a little trickier because these are so shallow that you have to have a delicate hand. I feel like this one is really meant for you to cure the nail inside the mold with it. These are extremely fine, thin little situations, but we made it work. As you can see, when I'm trying to clean it out, I sometimes end up accidentally scooping it out of the relief. But you can just slap it back in there. And once it's pretty good enough, stick it in for a full cure. So these ones are very tricky to remove. As you can see, they have so many little teeny parts that they fall apart really easily. But luckily, I didn't need them to be super perfect because I wanted this to be sort of a, spooky, decrepit looking set of nails, if that makes any sense. They get... These are also very easy to pull the things off of, but because they're so little, you have to be a lot more careful with getting the excess little gel hang-ons off because they will rip a lot easier than the thorn ones did. I've also linked this mold down in the comment section, so you can find it. They're a bit of a struggle to get out of this little mold, but I really love the wing mold. I used it on the other hand for this set of nails, but they are a little frustrating and tricky sometimes to pull out. So to fix this, I didn't need to actually use the stamper method on this one. The Jinbei Crazy Top Thick was sort of thick enough, and the little filigree was so thin that it just, once I like pushed it down with just sort of like the little silicone end on my tweezers there, it just stayed. It didn't try to curl up like some 3D elements do when you're trying to put them on. And so I could just cure it into place and didn't have to do anything extra to do it. And so we're just going to put some little filigree elements wherever they feel like they would look nice. I'm focusing mostly on the black nails and a little bit on the thumb, mostly because red on red, you know, it's not going to be super visible. See, as you can see, even the bigger ones, like the Crazy Top Thick, was enough to just sort of keep it in place. Once you've got all of these in place and you're happy with all of them, we're going to put that in for another full cure while we work on the rest of the 3D elements. And I got something a little new for them. So, another YouTuber, The Devil Wears Press-Ons, recommended these nail gels, which I decided to trust her on. I don't know her personally, but I bought them and they are incredible. I've added a link down below. She did not lie. These are great. So I have this mold here that's like roses and creepy things. So I'm doing all the roses in this sort of dark blue. And with each layer, just turn it over to check to make sure there's no bubbles. And then you just want to cure between layers. So we're curing. Next, the rest of the heart is going to be in this dark red. And like, look how pretty this red is. It matched so perfectly. You want to go still in sort of like thinnish layers. It's better to do multiple thin layers than to have the middle be completely uncured. But this, like, these nail mold gels are incredible. So we're going for a second. I'm making sure it's cured in the middle. It is. And when you're doing these molds, make sure to like flip them over when you're doing them to make sure that you've got everything looking good before you move on to the next step. And then cure between. I'm also going to be doing the skull for the thumb. So I'm starting with the skull, which is this white. Now this white turned out a bit stark for me, but I do add a different white on top afterwards. So yep, make sure I got everything covered, and then We're adding in a little bit of second layer of the white. Cure between every layer. And then finally I'm doing all the roses that surround the skull in the blue. We're actually going to paint over these with the Rosy Hip magnetic gel, but I wanted to pick colors that were very similar so that even if I don't do it, you know, it's not perfectly covered, it'll still match nicely. And then once you've got that all in, do it a full cure. I like to do a full cure do it on both sides. So I do 2 full cures with this, one on its back, and then flip it over so that the front gets a full cure under the main lamp as well once you're done with it. So we're pull those out. We're going to stick them on some stands because we are going to add a little bit of gel. You can do this also after you put it on the nail, but I like to do it before I do, it's easier to clean up. So I'm pulling out the Rosy Hip, a Jello, just white gel from their Mingle collection, and then the red Mayo and the green Rosy Hip that I used previously, so the RM10, and then the RM5, and then the Nihong 2, and then this is the Jello JC71. They'll all be linked below, and I'm just going to be put them out here and grabbing just a little liner brush to just, make them the perfect colors and for what I am looking for. So the heart and the roses on both of these have like little thorns and things. So I'm going to be doing the thorns and the leaves in green, the roses in blue, and then I'm going to be painting over with the red. Though it was a very close match, but I wanted it to have that same, just the same value as the red. And with each layer of this that you do, just to sort of fix it up, make sure that you cure between each layer. I'm going to cure that. Clean off your brush, and then I'm going to be doing the little rose. With this one, I just sort of I don't want it to fully destroy the texture of it, so I'm sort of like scrubbing it into the texture, very thin layer, and then magnetizing it to give it sort of a nice, get that little cat eye effect, and then flash cure it into place. And then there's these little thorn like lines across the heart, so I'm going to be doing those, and also these vein lines. It's an anatomically correct heart. It's a very creepy little mold that I got here, which I did not get for this heart. I got it for a completely different thing in the mold. There's also like a birdcage part in it, which is what I wanted it for a different project, but this was a nice, happy, creepy accident for Halloween. So I'm putting in a few blue veins, a few green thorns, and we're going to magnetize those as well. Once you're happy with that, hit her with the magnet to bring out some of that cat eye effect, and then hit her with the flash cure lamp. And then we're going to be doing the same thing for the skull, with doing like the flowers in blue, the leaves in green, and then I'm going to be going over the white with like sort of a less stark white. It's sort of like an off-white. I ended up not loving it either. I feel like I should have dry brushed on like a bit of brown, maybe added in a few cracks or something, but hindsight being 20/20 and all that. Magnetize those flowers, and then after each layer you definitely want to flash cure so that you're not smearing it off while you're doing other things. I don't know why I chose to do like an Edgar Allen Poe set of nails for Halloween. I'm not like super into his writings or anything, but I think I saw this mold, and I had that mold and then the like the wing mold, and I was like, ooh, raven. Yes, nevermore. Yes, perfect, perfect. And then I was just like, hey, why not just do a whole, just sort of spooky Edgar Allan Poe inspired set of Halloween nails, because 'tis the season. I'm not like a huge, Poe head or anything, but I like a good creepy tale. Also, birds kind of freak me out, so I get it. So fully cure those. So now we gotta stick them on. So the heart is gonna go on the middle finger, and the skull's gonna go on the thumb. And the same as for anything else, you just dip them into some rhinestone glue, or in my case, Jim Be Crazy Top Thick. Sort of wipe off any excess. You only need like a thin layer for this. And then stick it on where you want. And then once you're happy with this placement, hit her with the flash cure lamp so that it doesn't move. You don't want too thick of a layer of these because it will seep out. You only need like a little thin layer of the rhinestone glue. Like it will hold, and we will be top coating over it. So you don't need to really glob it on. Make sure to wipe off as much as possible. You just want like a nice thin layer to adhere it into place, but you don't want too much spillover. So once you've got those flash cured into place, you're going to want to put it in for yet another full cure. Into the lamp. So finally, we're going to be making some little roses. We're just doing the exact same method using the same navy blue nail gel. And this mold had a bunch of different roses. And you can just really get in there. So just putting all the gel in. And these roses are pretty shallow, so I didn't have to do it in layers, which was really nice. Just as I said, make sure to flip over your molds to like make sure that there aren't any huge bubbles or anything that will stymie you when you get to after you cure it. Let's flip it over. There's a few little bubbles. I'm gonna fix them up. And also, yeah, hitting it on the table like that can make some of the bubbles rise to the top. Once you're happy with everything, which I clearly was not, I had to go back in, a few bubbles. This last rose was really causing me some problems. I'm sort of like using the nozzle to dig out these air bubbles. So once you're happy, fully cure. Okay, so now we're just going to be doing the exact same thing where we pull them out and we're going to affix them where we think they will look nice on our nails. I don't know why I went with blue roses. I kind of like roses anyway, and I feel like roses are kind of a creepy flower. But I wanted to have like the blue as a contrasting color, so the blue roses it is. So gently pull out all of these. Getting them out of the mold is sometimes pretty satisfying. Though I will say they do come out looking matte, so even if you were just going to be using them like this, know that they will look matte, but when you top coat them, they look lovely and glossy anyway. So, and I do recommend top coating these because they are not non-wipe gel by any stretch of the means. Like the backs of them that is exposed to the air do have a sticky layer. So using your rhinestone glue, or in my case, my Gin Bee Crazy Top Thick, you're going to want to just stick them wherever you feel they would look nice on these nails. And then once you've got them in a place that you like, give them a flash cure. And then just keep that going. I found the little ones particularly nice for filling in some like little gaps. And the nice part about using 3D molds instead of buying charms is that you can, if you find that you're like one little charm short for the size you need, you just make a new one. You don't have to figure out a new plan. You can just make another little charm. I am by no means a like 3D mold expert, but I've been having a lot of fun with them. I have a bunch in my sort of wish list at the moment to possibly get in the future, so we'll see. Just stick them on, cure it, and then when you've got everything fully on and the nails are looking pretty good, as always, before we move to the next step, you want to put all of these nails in for a full 60-second cure because, you know, we want it to be give it as much of a fighting chance as possible for everything to be properly cured. The final step for the decor elements is we're going to be adding the blue gel to the nails. So we want it to like match with like the MAC gel. So that's what we're doing with the Rosy Hip gel here. And I'm just putting them, sort of scrubbing them onto the flowers. You don't want them to be gooping on there because you want the detail of the rose to remain. And then once you've got like a pretty good coverage and it's looking good, this did help that I had a nail gel that was a very similar color. You're going to take your magnet, give it a nice cat eye effect. And then flash cure it into place. And go off camera. I have like a new light setup I'm still getting used to, so I apologize when I go off camera this video. And then you're just going to do that for all the roses. And as always, once you've got the nails looking the way you want, and I believe I also went in and added some of the blue to the eye sockets of the skull because I thought it looked a little one-dimensional. But once you've got everything looking the way that you like, stick it in for a full cure. Here's me deciding that, yeah, the eye sockets needed a little bit of definition. There we go. A little nose socket as well. A little flash cure, and then stick it in for a full cure, and it's time to do some top coat. So we're doing technically three layers of top coat for this. So for the first one, we're going to be using the Crazy Top Standard. And basically what I'm using this for is to go around, like in all the gaps and along the base of the nail to sort of make sure that all of the charms that are on there are like fully adhered. So I'm going in and making sure that all the gaps are filled and that everything is nice and smooth on the base, but I'm not going over the tops of the charms with it. Because the standard is a bit too thick for things with such detail, unless you want to lose all the definition on them. So I'm just going around through the gaps. So this is going to make sure that everything is adhered nicely and that the base of the nails are nice and smooth. So you can go over the thorns and the filigree area with this because they're a different, that's fine if they are more integrated into the nail. But the roses and the bigger charms, I didn't want to use this thick of a top coat on. And these things are rock solid. Like, these charms ain't going anywhere. If you take good care to like really seal everything in, you're gonna be golden, baby. So turn it over to let things settle away from the edges, and then stick it in for a full 60-second cure. Make sure there's nothing dragging over. Cure that bad boy. Next, we're going to be doing Crazy Top Soft, or any sort of like thin consistency top coat. As you can see, I am almost out of this. I need to get more. But this is what we're going to be using to go over all of the like charms and things. I like using both like the soft and the standard together because I know that you can cure one on top of the other without it doing that weird thing that like it basically it's almost like it separates, like it forms little cells sometimes with some top coats when you try to layer them over other top coats without buffing first. But the Jim B Crazy Top does not have that problems with its own product. So I'm using the soft to seal in all of the nails. I'm also dropping all of the nails, as you can see, which is a constant occurrence. But you can definitely scrub it into all those details, and the soft is such like a thin consistency that it really will not take away too much of the detail of these little 3D charms. Good, nice coverage. And send that in for a cure. It was at this point that I realized that the letters really were kind of muddled. So I thought maybe if I put a matte top coat over just the letters, they would stand out a bit more. So I'm using the Yogurt Nail Cotton Matte Top, which is a really nice matte top coat. But a little warning, it does have quite the heat spike if you're not doing it on press-ons and using it on just actual nails. So keep that in mind. But it is a wonderful matte top coat. So I am just very carefully basically tracing over the letters with matte top coat to try to make the letters be matte. I'm not sure if this was completely successful at the end of the day. I feel like the letters still ended up a little muddled, and maybe if I did these nails again, I wouldn't bother with the letters, but hey, we were trying something, right? So just doing a quick flash cure and then doing the other ones. The cotton mat is a very thin viscosity top coat, so it was very easy to paint over this. And then put that in for a full cure. And that is the nails done. I'm going to be sort of filing the edges a little just to smooth them out, neaten them up. Because I find, especially with stiletto nails, like when you're done making them, they lose a bit of the point. So I like to file them right at the end, just to sort of regain a little bit of their sharpness back, you know? So once you give those a little file, they are pretty much done and ready to wear. Now, my final thoughts on these nails are, they're not my greatest set of nails. I don't think they quite turned out exactly as I saw in my mind, but that's like the artistic process, right? Like sometimes things don't quite turn out how you want. I think I should have used like a lighter base on the red so that the heart stands out more. But they do have like a dark Gothic vibe, which was the point. Here I am just wiping off the alcohol, losing a nail while wiping it off, trying to stick it back. This is my constant battle. And then I just gave up and put it on a new stand, and that really fixed it for me. But the thing about, like making things is sometimes you got to make things that are not quite, they don't turn out quite the way you envision, but they're still nice in their own way. And I still think these nails are really creepy and Gothic. They really get the vibe that I was going for. And so in that sense, I think that they really did what I was hoping that they would do. I think if I remade them, I probably wouldn't include the text. But, hindsight and all that, I still think they look pretty cool. So anyway, thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you have a really happy Halloween. Let me know if you wore spooky nails as well. I'll be back next week with something new. And I hope that you have a great week. Bye.